Hello and welcome back to the Time Space Visualizer. It's us. Hi.
That is what we do.
Yes,
it is usually us.
It is usually us.
Unless we've been hacked, which would be quite unfortunate.
Yes, but it's fine. We're not. We're here. Hello.
What are we doing today?
We are reviewing the two-part serial from series 22 of Classic Who, a Colin Baker classic to be exact. Vengeance on Varos.
Yes, written by Philip Martin and directed by Ron Jones and broadcast between the 15th and 21st. 26th, that's not even maths, of January 1985. And this is one of those stories that is a highlight for that season, which isn't saying much, however, for season 22, because it is, I don't know how you feel about it, but it is my least favourite season of Classic Who. It's, you know, it's not got a lot going for it. I think the direction they went with that series was interesting, but didn't really work for me.
Yeah, it is. I'm in the same boat there. I feel it's Colin Baker being done dirty a bit. He had so much more to give to that role, which you do get to see in Big Finish.
Yeah, I think he was done off. Like, he had a really rough deal by the BBC at the time, and I think he was treated appallingly in terms of how he was let go from the role and everything and fired, essentially, because they just wanted a bit of a change after he'd only been the Doctor. Bear in mind, they had an 18-month hiatus during his era as well, so he really wasn't the Doctor for that long. But enough of that. Vengeance on Varos has a very interesting and, I would say, quite good first episode. I think the world building that's set up with it, the dystopian, you know, it's not far off what eventually becomes the idea for like Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways and everything, of a population that are just glued to watching, you know, horror, video nasties, essentially. That's what really inspired this, is the video nasty stuff of the 80s. But it's something that's done quite a lot in science fiction and everything, where you have this dystopian future and everyone's glued to the screens, you know, and they're sort of voting for different bits and pieces throughout time. And I just think that it's the stuff with Etta and Arik and their bunk, who don't interact with anyone else. They essentially act like a sort of Greek chorus throughout the whole thing. That's really cool. And you see that they are just sort of begrudgingly just going along with everything, and, you know, Arik is a bit more sort of like blasé with the whole thing, whereas Etta's very much like, oh yes, the governor, what a lovely man. But really it's not the governor that's the main villain, which is something I did like, which we'll get into later, but it's Syl.
Yeah. Who
makes an immediate impression, and I think is probably one of the best villains from Classic Who in terms of the design and the performance. The performance especially, I think Nabil Shaban absolutely nails it. Quite interesting that behind the scenes that there was a bit of a not a controversy as much, because there was a bit of a push to get more disabled actors on screen. And so Doctor Who did that, but unfortunately they had a disabled actor playing the role of a monster, which caused a bit of a, this isn't kind of what we were going for. But I think there's no one else that could do Syl other than Nabil Shaban. I think he is phenomenal in it. That laugh, which I'm not doing again. I just think it's...
Oh, I'm going to have dreams of that now. Thank
you. You do it.
So all the world building stuff was brilliant.
I think it's the setup and everything. The only thing I had a bit of an issue with watching it was the sets very drab. They're big open spaces, but they're so... It's one of those rare times where you complain about Doctor Who from the 80s not being completely overlit, because it's underlit in this, but it doesn't really quite work, because it does look like you do get the feel that this is just a set on a soundstage, especially those corridors. It's the same corridor, like over and over again, just at different angles and everything, and slightly reconstructed. But the main plot of the episode is that the Doctor and Peri are in the TARDIS, enjoying each other's company as they always do, and they run out of a material that helps fuel the TARDIS, but can only be found on one planet, and that's Varos. Not any other planet close to Gallifrey or anything, which would kind of make sense. But they have to go to Varos, and they land there after what feels like an eternity, just squabbling in the TARDIS, and like the whole defeated Sixth Doctor thing really doesn't... I don't vibe with that at all.
No.
I think as soon as he gets a bit more optimistic and everything, and he's joking around with Peri, I'm much more in that when it's the jokey side of things rather than he's actually criticising her, because that I don't like either. But when he's just sort of sat there slumped in the chair, and he's like, oh, well, I'll just consign myself to eternity and all that. It's like, you've barely done anything.
Yeah, you haven't even tried. I just love the fact, though, that, like, with them being glued to the TV, the voting system as well. So if the public vote against the governor, he gets tortured or killed.
Yeah,
I believe it's a very dark angle to go for, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of implied that they can only have so many like failures before they just basically die, and it's sort of quite a slow process. It's sort of, you know, I got sort of reading from it that it was meant to be some sort of like breakdown of the body, sort of cancer kind of thing.
Even quite dark. Prime Minister.
I think this is quite dark. Would I like this to happen to our government? No comment. But I think the idea of them, you know, it's not something that you could be. All right, it's not realistic in terms of it's not happening now, but it's also does play on that thing that this could really happen. Like, we see a lot of people getting dissected on TV, and not literally dissected, you know what I mean? Like, you know, cross-examined and torn to shreds on news programs and everything. And, you know, you think, where is the line? And that's what this story kind of does. It goes, this is where the line is. It's all the way over here, and we're gonna, you know, torture the governors and everything. And I like the world building of it. It does feel like a prison that's just evolved into this sort of like mini society where you have the officers and the prisoners and the you know, the people that are about to be executed, like Jason Connery's character, whose name escapes me.
Yeah.
But I thought he was quite wooden, I'll be honest. His dad's a bit better than acting, but at least he can do a different accent.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the first episode's great, because you have the Doctor and Perry, they eventually get into the situation. John Dar. They free John Dar because they don't like the fact that this man is just basically being chained up and is about to be randomly lasers to death. And they run through this punishment dome thing in the purple zone, which I think is really cool. I just think they should have... It's a really good concept. It's a really cool concept, and I just wish they'd done that a bit more. I wish we'd have had the Doctor and Perry land sooner and just had more of the Purple Zone stuff. You know, all the sort of trippy... You know, me, love a bit of abstract stuff.
I would have, personally, from when they landed, like, it doesn't have to be Purple Zone, just see them getting exposed to all of that before running in, and just, like, have them stumble across the execution in a way, not the way they did. Like, they sort of just showed up in that... I mean, it was kind of fun how they did it with the... anti-hallucinogen helmet thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it was, it's faulty. I was like, okay, great, whatever.
What did make me laugh, though, is the fact that there's a very notorious scene from Part 2 that we'll get into later on from this story.
Does it involve acid?
It does indeed. However, there is a bit where the Doctor turns the laser around, and a guard just steps into it and is completely disintegrated. And it's like, Now, I've not got too much of a problem with that, because that's not really the Doctor's fault. I could imagine that being done as a deterrent, but this guard just walks straight into this, like, death ray. And it's like,
better acting.
I don't want to say natural selection, but if you're going to walk into a big laser beam that disintegrates you...
I've had this debate with people at work. It's fine. Health and safety.
Walking into laser beams?
No.
I'm so confused.
No, just about natural selection, really.
Oh, I see. Right, now I get you. I was thinking specifically of this, yeah.
And why you have to have caution hot contents on a McDonald's bloody coffee cup. Right, because it's natural selection. That's why.
I think another thing I do really like about this is the score. I think it's got quite a cool... the incidental score is a bit different. It's a bit more... alien sounding. It's not just sort of orchestral. It plays on that radiophonic workshop, which is the stuff I love. I love the fact that all the stories from sort of to the end of this season really are all composed by radiophonic workshop, and it's all a bit weird and a bit electronic and all that. I like that. But one thing that did make me laugh is that during all of this chasing, because after the Doctor and Perry rescue Yonda, they meet up with someone else, and they basically go, we have to stop this, and then run through corridors for the rest of the episode with some cool abstract walking through the Purple Zone with all these horrible things that are being imagined, which is really cool, and I wish I'd done more of that. You know, why didn't we get more of that? But what did make me laugh is before they get to that part, they're being chased around by these carts that are probably going about 3 miles an hour tops, and they look slow. It's not even like one of those things where, it's probably going a bit quick. They just look slow, and, you know, we could see at one point Colin Baker just jogs down a corridor and he's already outrun them.
Yeah, it's quite funny. They don't have their go faster stripe, which you'd have thought, you know...
That's what it is.
It's the lack of a go faster stripe on the front of the cart.
See, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, see, evil people didn't either.
You're on the ball.
I know. Terrible decision for the design team there.
Yeah, I do really wish we'd seen more of... I don't know if that probably would have been something down to the budget, but I think, you know, if this was done now, you could quite easily have done a whole episode just going through this Purple Zone. You know, is this real or is this not? And I loved all of that. And I remember, because this, I think, was the first Colin Baker story I saw, because it was one of his earliest that was released on DVD. It was either this or The Two Doctors. Whichever one was released first, that was the first one I saw. I think it was this. But I remember the purple zone stuff going on for much longer than it did, because he basically, oh, it's a big fly, oh, some green lights, oh, we're out of it now, and now we're into the like punishment, execution, deaths. What was it called? Something death zone or something death center.
Yeah, punishment and death center, or execute something about execution.
Something along people being dead, basically.
Yeah, it's a cheery topic, to be honest.
Yeah, and we ran into quite a cool cliffhanger, which we have talked about in our cliffhangers video that we did a couple of months ago, which you haven't seen. Please go and watch, because I think that was one of our best videos. Not to toot our own horn, I really enjoyed that.
So did I. It was great fun going over that.
Yeah, and I think you chose this as your pick for Colin's cliffhanger, didn't you?
So yeah, this cliffhanger is brilliant. So you got the illusion taken in, but it tricks your mind into... Colin Baker's basically envisioned himself being in a desert, but the illusion's so good, it tricks his mind into thinking, oh crap, we're actually in a desert. It's getting really hot for him. His mind is just... All his senses are kind of getting acclimatized to being in the desert. And the illusion works really well, because for a moment you generally think, oh crap, this might actually kill him.
Yeah.
Sorry for how I said that, because I was stifling a hiccup. But
I thought you just getting really emotional. I was like,
okay. No, I had a hiccup. But yeah, it's the way he sells it so bloody well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing with this, is that I will say, is that bar Jason Connery, who is quite wooden, would go on to do some great things later on with Robin and Sherwood and everything, but in this is very, he's sort of like that stereotypical camp acting that you did, but I think the acting across the rest of the board is pretty decent. Like, Martin Jarvis does a brilliant job as the governor, or the governor, as Syl always says. And I think he's great in it. He's really sort of quite... You can tell that he's not happy with this. He's not happy with the way he's being run, and the fact that he, spoiler alert, he's not in control. It's all Syl and the chief officer and everything. I think he plays it really well, and he's almost becomes quite likeable by the end of it. I think it's got Owen Teale in a minor role, Welsh.
I don't like that Perry gets that feeling of just helpless companion like we used to have. Yeah. Because it seems they escape, and then Perry gets captured, and then the doctor's like, I've got to do this, and then I've got to go save Perry again. And it's just a constant loop. I feel they could have done a lot more with Perry in this. Yeah, her acting was brilliant, don't get me wrong. It's just the way she was utilised.
I think I have a bit of an issue with some of the sort of mid-JNT era companions with, you go from having quite strong and capable people that may not necessarily have a lot of screen time, but, if you look at the start of Davison's era, for example, you've got Adric, a very strong, capable mathematician, but a bit sort of lacking in the action hero department, subverting that trope quite well. You've got Nyssa, who's a scientist, essentially, quite similar intellectually to the Doctor, and then you've got Tegan, who's not afraid to, stand up for, put the Doctor in his place and everything, and be like, "Oi, you're taking the mickey here, son." But by the time you get to Perry, it is that stereotype of, like, early 60s companion, where it's just screaming girl.
Susan.
Yeah, it's the same with...
It's a remake of Susan.
Yeah, it's the same with Mel as well afterwards. And then, for some reason, they go, like, completely the opposite direction with Ace, and making Ace much more capable and stronger than many of the companions before her. It's just a really weird... I don't know why it dips like that in the middle, but, I don't know. But yeah, part one is a very strong start to a story. I love the world building, I love the dystopian nature of it all, the acting, the score, and everything is very on point. I think the direction's a little bit ropey in some places, but that's more to do, I think, with budget and everything than that they didn't really have the resources to do what was in the script, and what could have probably been, with a much bigger budget, quite impressive. However,
part two,
I got a bit bored.
Yes, after the opening 10 minutes, I'd say, I kind of zoned out a bit. So for us, it was that bit where they're convinced that the Doctor's dead. They've seen it all happen on the monitor. The Doctor's taken to be thrown into an acid bath.
Yeah, we can't skip over the acid bath.
Yeah, we cannot skip over this, because it happened. The Doctor goes and taps a guard who's standing over an acid bath facing away from him, taps him on the shoulder, and the guard gets so scared, he jumps backwards into the acid.
He does a spin round and then it flops backwards.
Yeah.
Health and safety somewhere probably don't tap people if they're bending over in an acid bath. Would you agree with that? I don't know how much you work with acid baths, but...
I've not come across it, to be fair, no.
No, fair. But we would imagine that they would be sort of like a approach with caution kind of sign somewhere, maybe.
Considering you have to have barriers around open areas in whatever, you kind of would expect there to be a barrier stopping you from falling into a big vat of acid.
Budget.
Sod health and safety. We need a monster.
But there's a, I don't know, because there's a big debate of whether the Doctor kills these guards and everything. The first one, yes,
arguably, yeah,
but not intentionally. I think that's more the guards being a bit clumsy and a lack of health and safety. I'd say corporate manslaughter at best. The second guard, that's self-defense as far as I'm concerned. You know, he's trying to do it. He's spinning them around. He's got the tray there. He's trying to stop them, and he's not even the one that pushes that second guard in. It's the other guy who's bubbling away in the acid, drags him in, and pulls the other one into the acid for some reason.
Yes, because that is definitely what you do. You'd pick something that could fall and not get you out.
Yeah. I don't know if that was the intention or if he was just like, I'm going to drag you in with me kind of thing. But I think the acid bath, I don't really have a problem with.
Maybe he slept with his wife. And he thought, you know what, I'm going out, you're coming with me.
We've just created an entire backstory for two guards that don't even, I think, have a single line of dialogue and die by acid bubbles. Well, this is what we do on this channel.
I am interested in this backstory now. Right. I want to elaborate on this.
Big finish. Get us a box set, we'll write the whole thing, right? And we'll call it The Acid Bath Adventurers.
We'll do the voices as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're qualified to do that. But yeah, I think my only problem with this is like the James Bond quip that he does afterwards. You know, most doctors would be appalled at the sight of two people dissolving in acid. He just sort of leans over and goes, forgive me if I don't join you. Like, good one.
Yeah.
I just find it a bit morbid. But the rest of the episode is, I don't know what it is, but the pace just slows right down. Like, there wasn't a lot of pace in the first episode, but there was enough to keep it entertaining and moving.
It's the typical amount of pace you'd tend to have, and then the second episode would tend to go that bit faster because it's got all these open ends, all these bits opened, and you just need to tie them up to finish it off. And it usually works.
Well, you find that with a lot, I think, of classic Who stories, is that even with some other lesser appreciated ones, the first episode is usually quite strong because that's setting everything up. It's usually how everything else is delivered in the next 3, 5, 7, whatever episodes can be a bit ropey. Like, I look at things like The Web Planet, which is not a great story.
No.
But has a cracking first episode. Same with the Space Museum, which I think is the second story after it or something. They have great opening episodes, and then it's just like...
It just drops the ball.
Yeah, it's just running around corridors now. There are some things I like. I like how me and Tom cameoed as the old men in the nappies. Our first paid acting gigs. A lot of makeup needed for that.
I still look like that now.
You've dyed your hair.
I've grown hair.
You've grown hair?
Yeah. Plugs.
No, that was quite fun. I did. I think Quillam is such a cool camp villain. Like, I couldn't tell if he was like chewing the scenery or just nailing everything. I think the line where he's like, "I want to hear them scream until I'm deaf with pleasure" or something is such a camp Doctor Who villain line. I loved that.
It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
I think. Well, I can't even remember what else there was. So I've got to look at my notes. Yeah, see, it builds on that prison of evolution environment as well, because when the Doctor and Jondar, whatever his name is,
yeah, he has a name.
James Bond's son, about to be executed and everything, like they've got the priests and everything, they've got the big gongs and all that, and it does feel like this society within a prison has just gone on and evolved, and it's not really touched. I think that was something that was more heavily done in earlier drafts and everything, being like, this is a prison that's expanded into this society, which is, I think, a really cool idea, to have these very intimate, sounds weird, but you know what I mean, like closed off intimate settings have evolved into these, their own society structures with everything. That works great. It's just the rest of it is just wandering around corridors and people just talking to each other, and there's not a lot of action in the second part, bar the acid bath stuff and the stuff with, Grandad Will and Grandad Tom.
Yeah.
So, I think overall, highlights for me, Syl.
Yes, he was a brilliant slug-looking creature. Strongest
part of this. I'm glad they brought back Syl as well in the next season. I would like to have seen a bit more of him as well, as sort of a recurring villain maybe. The Governor and Quillam, loved all of that. I just think there was the rest of it. It hits that second part and has a bit of a slow. I do love the whole, that by the end of it, the Governor is back in control and he's ending all of it, because the whole point is that these are exporting, these videos and the Zyton 7, and that's all come down to sort of, so they don't need the video nasty stuff anymore. There's not going to be any more torture and humiliation, and it's that scene at the end, just before the episode finishes, with Arak and Etta in their cell bunk
whatever
house
it is,
type
just
flat thing.
like what's going to happen now.
Yeah, and they just don't know what to do because
free.
they're so used to this. They like, well, now what else is out there? What do we do?
What is there to life? They've had their entire life literally crumble before their eyes, effectively, because that's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
But you never know. It could have. It could always find out something that happens to them. I'm sure there's bound to be them popping up somewhere.
Yeah.
Again.
But bring them back for the 60th. Okay, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have the Mara, but
this is true. Well,
imagine if the Mara is in the 60th. Sorry, we're going off on a tangent.
That would be pretty cool, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I just think that this is it's a story of, definitely a story.
It's a story relative to what's going on now, because obviously the Sil was extorting the fuel prices a bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's extorting the fuel price, and it's having to have something else to cover the costs of this and everything. And they're doing that through, well, we've got a nation that's basically glued to the screens. Like, it is that sort of dystopian thing, and it's aged, the story-wise, is aged really, bless you.
Sorry.
I might just keep that in.
Oh, thank you for that.
I think the story as a concept and as a narrative has aged really well. I don't think it shows, you get some stories that are aged by certain things, and I think, with this, because it's also alien but yet kind of familiar, it works
really well.
Really well. And you could see this is where it's influenced a lot of things going forward. Like I said, parting of the waves and everything, where you've got a society of people on a global scale that are just glued to television, and it's all about, life. It is a life and death situation.
And they're just watching, like, with the Big Brother stuff, obviously, you get evicted, you get vaporised.
Yeah.
And sent to a Dalek and died anyways, but
as far as they can see, they're dead.
Either way, they are dead.
True.
But yeah, it's nice to see the concept resurface in New Who. I wouldn't mind seeing it come up again a bit more. As long as they do it right and they do it justice. I don't want it to be thrown in for the sake of having it thrown in.
I think it's one of those stories that you could quite easily, like, if this had not been made in the 80s, you could pitch this now and it would fit perfectly into a story now, just with the same, just a bit updated and everything.
And with the budget, it would be a lot better looking. Yeah,
more Purple Zone, faster carts. You could do this now again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll happily drive a cart. Sod it.
Well,
vroom vroom.
Thank you for joining us for that lovely little review there.
Yes.
I mean, it was alright, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any major rush to go and watch part 2 of Vengeance of Varos again.
I'm not in any particular rush to watch it again. I think the last time I watched it, because I watched this on the collection set, so I would have watched it when the collection came out. But I hadn't seen it for a while before that. Got to say that the collection set's version of it with the, it looks very nicely remastered. The surround sound mix on it really works and adds to it. But yeah, overall, alright. Wouldn't rush to it again. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. Not the best. But it's definitely near the top end of this season for me. But there's not a lot of competition. So
no, season 22 is for lack of a better term.
We'll see you next week for more of the same
shenanigans.
Yeah, that's a great word, shenanigans.
It is a good word.
I'm not sure what it's doing next because we've got a couple of things that are recorded, and I'll just post them in whatever order feels appropriate.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We've got a comments video that probably will be up by now. Maybe even a reaction. Well, not a reaction, but like a thought of general hopes and stuff for the 60th.
Yeah.
And my Comic-Con vlog, which I hope you enjoyed. I've never done a vlog before. It was alright.
I did enjoy that, to be fair. It was
Thank you.
good. It looked really good. I really wish I could have come, but work.
Well, tickets are on sale for next year, so,
I'll get it. I won't be working weekends then, so yeah, I'll definitely be there next year.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to stop rambling now.
Yes.
Leave you to it. Ta-ra, everyone. Thanks for joining us again.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Share your love to the channel. Please.
Share your love.
Share your love
Still got a bit
to the
hippie now,
channel.
What was that? I don't know if that's just
that's overtiredness and energy drinks. That is a lovely concoction.
Anyway, before this gets a bit hippie and Tom rolls a spliff, I'm gonna.
I don't do it, honest.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. That was a joke. You could tell it's a joke because I've left it in.